It's completely about the people, because that is one of, if not the most dynamic aspects of the business, that every single day that you open, your people are determining what that day is going to look like. Welcome to the AttractionPros Podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the AttractionPros Podcast.
Hi there, and welcome to the AttractionPros Podcast. I am Scott Fais. We are joining you from IAAPA Global Headquarters here in Orlando, Florida. And yes, you are tuned in to the right podcast. We are so excited to have these two gentlemen who need no introduction celebrating their 300th podcast here inside our headquarters. And as it says, this is the Global Association for the Attractions Industry. Matt, Josh, congratulations on 300 shows, and thank you for entrusting me as we kind of turn the tables just a little bit. It's your show. I'm not really taking it over, but I kind of am, as I ask you a bunch of questions all about what have the past 299 shows meant to both of you. So first of all, congratulations, but let's go back in time. We're going to start with you, Matt. Tell me, how did the two of you guys connect? How did you get together?
Well, it actually comes back to IAAPA.
Really?
We met when Josh was a show ambassador, and I was working with the HR committee, and we had done some training, and so we interacted first there, and then we both worked at Universal at the same time, and then our paths had crossed many, many times, and at one point we were having dinner just before a conference, and I said, Josh, you should start a podcast, and he said, you should start a podcast, and the rest is history.
And the two of you just got together from there.
Yeah.
And Josh, you were working as a young professional at the time. Remind everybody, how did you get into the industry?
I got into the industry as a frontline employee at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. It was the day after I turned 18 years old. I packed up my little Honda Civic and I drove from suburban Detroit to Sandusky and joined the attractions industry from there.
And you worked on several rides there, and then one thing led to another, and you came down to Orlando.
I did. I lived very close to here, pretty much on the other side of that lake over there at the Rosen College for a couple of years. Went to it's UCF's hospitality campus, and that's where the Theme Parks and Attractions Management program is, which coming soon is actually going to be a full bachelor's degree. So I get to say I have my bachelor's in hospitality with a concentration in theme parks and attractions. And then I went back to Rosen afterwards and I got my master's in hospitality and tourism. And during that time, worked for Disney for a little bit, worked for Universal for a couple of years, like Matt mentioned. Took a summer, went to Myrtle Beach. That was a lot of fun, and opened up Hard Rock Park, and then opened Legoland, Florida, down not too far from here, and then one other small park, and then that was it's pretty much had the opportunity to work both on the front line and in various leadership capacities at multiple parks.
Lots of great experience. Mm-hmm. And then Matt, how did you get bit by the bug, so to speak?
Well, I was working at a supermarket, and my mom said, hey, the park down the road, which was Canopy Lake Park in New Hampshire, was hiring. And I didn't really want to go back to the supermarket again. It was, between college and high school. And so I went down there, I got hired as a ride operator, and again, that was kind of history. So I spent about 10 years there, worked my way up through the rides department, spent some time with Cedar Fair at Valley Fair, and also Knott's Camp Snoopy in the Mall of America when it was Knott's Camp Snoopy. I was then the general manager of a small family entertainment center in Milford, Connecticut called Smiles Entertainment Center. It's not there anymore, but learned a lot there, and that's actually what led me to Universal. And then in 2011, I left Universal and started my own company, and now I get to work with leaders all across the industry, really helping them make sure they've got the right tools and resources so they can be successful.
Absolutely. And that's what you do on the podcast. Tell me a little bit about how the podcast has contributed back, let's say, to the industry as a whole.
Well, I think one of the things that we hope that has done is open people's eyes to different career paths. That's one of the big things that we really want to highlight. There's so many different leaders that we've been able to talk to that just have amazing weird paths, how they got to where they are. It's never a straight line, from, being a ride operator or a sweeper or, somebody scooping ice cream to being the CEO of a company, whether you're manufacturing rides or water slides or you're a CEO at a theme park. It's never a straight line. And I think that's one of the things that hopefully we've been able to kind of share with people and maybe even inspire them to say, if you like the industry, but maybe what you're doing right now isn't really in line with what you want to do, there's always something else, right? Every theme park says we're a big city and there's so many different things that you can do. So hopefully that's one of the ways that we've kind of inspired the industry a little bit.
Josh, how about you?
Yeah, and one of the things that we really set out to do, because when we first started the podcast, we noticed that there really was a gap in educational type content for those who are building a career in the industry. There's plenty of enthusiast content out there. There's a lot of, if you look at podcasts, there's a lot of travel planning podcasts. I have no idea how many travel planning podcasts include the word Disney in them. It is probably, it might be in the hundreds at this point, to be completely honest. And they're all fantastic, and they're all great for their specific market. And frankly, a lot of them probably have more mass market appeal. But we really saw an opportunity to create something for attractions industry professionals, attraction pros, to be able to learn from the best in the business. And really, we really set out to say, what if we reached out to, whether it's owners or CEOs or executives and just all people throughout the industry, and really learn whether it's about their career path in particular, or about their business, or about what it is that that they do specifically. So there's a ton of content in the last 299 episodes on executive leadership. There's plenty on operational leadership, but there's also a lot on marketing. There's a lot on operations. There's a lot on. We did an episode recently on construction, and we've done spotlighted engineers and the manufacturing process. And like Matt said, we really have strived to cover both the operator and supplier side of the business, so that our audience is really able to not only learn maybe from their specific career path, but really be able to understand the entire industry and everything else that is out there. And that includes theme parks, that's zoos, museums, it's aquariums, it's family entertainment centers, it's trampoline parks. As we know, the whole attractions industry is very broad, and we're excited to be able to kind of have the chance to talk to people from just all different segments of it.
I like to say, whenever you find safe fund, you find IAAPA members. And with more than 6,000 members around the globe, IAAPA embraces all of them and is so excited to help their industry and their business grow. And that's what you've done with the podcast. After 299 different episodes, how do you look at the industry differently, Matt?
Well, I think it goes back to those stories that we hear from the CEOs and the people that we interview, because I think sometimes, when you think about people in those positions, if you don't know them, it's easy to dehumanize them,
sure,
right? And not understand what their struggles are. But they're all human beings, right? And they're all people with different struggles. And, we've heard so many great stories of people that, have overcome adversity, or they have, like we talked about before with the career path, they've gone in completely strange directions, right? And then brought it back, or, found a passion in something they didn't expect to find. And so I think I look at the people that are leading this industry. Certainly I've always looked at them with reverence and respect because of the positions they're in and the amazing experiences they create, either for their employees or guests. But I think I look at them now even more as human beings, right?
Really?
And we've also heard people talk about the mistakes that they've made and how they've again overcome those, or they said, hey, the business was really going down the wrong path, and this is how we were able to fix it. So, I look at those folks really maybe with a more human eye now, even than I did before.
Wow. And with 45 minutes, the average length of your podcast, you have time to kind of peel back those layers. And it's just not a soundbite, but it's an honest-to-goodness conversation where somebody starts to feel as if they can share. And then everybody learns from those mistakes.
Yeah.
After 299, Josh, tell me, how is the industry viewed differently from your lens?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we use the term "peel back the layers" and "peel back the onion" quite often. So there's a very
I wonder where I
relevant
got that.
Well
from.
done. Well
Where
done.
did that come from?
I joked with Matt once, we need onion goggles so that, prevent the burn from the onion, right? I will echo everything that Matt said as far as kind of humanizing the people that you might, read about in Fun World or be able to, or maybe see in passing in the aisles of the trade shows.
Yeah.
I would also say to kind of extend it further is that I feel that the industry is even smaller after talking to so many people, connecting so many dots, and being able to see these people, not only these people know this person and this person and this person, but every once in a while we'll ask similar types of questions to guests. We try to really, probe into them specifically, but just, some basic questions about, their career and their guidance and things like that. And there's a lot of parallels and a lot of, I would say, similar voices that that we hear in their responses, that it just makes the industry feel a little bit smaller, because it sounds like there's a lot of things that we just as an industry are on the same page about a lot of things that we might not necessarily realize, because I'm in Chicago, Matt's in North Carolina, you're in Orlando, or different areas of the industry, and people are all over the world, but as a whole I'd say we're singing the same song.
Sure.
Yeah.
Matt, earlier you said that every attraction will tell you they're like a small city, or maybe they're a big city, but when you come back to it, it's all about people. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what guest in the past 299 episodes had, let's say, the biggest impact on you?
Wow, that is a tough question. It's almost like picking children, Scott, but I will narrow this down. There was one person, Brian Knoebel, who he and I were texting one day, and Josh and I had an opening that day that somebody else was scheduled and they were unable to make it.
Which happens more than you think when it comes to journalism, no matter what sector you're covering, that you're all excited for one, and then I call it a rescue mission. How do you put the pieces back together again? It sounds like Brian Knoebel was that person.
He was, and so he and I were texting back and forth. It happened to be his father's birthday that day. They were a couple of days from opening the park for the season, and I said, we've always wanted you on the podcast. We've got some time at 3 o'clock today. What do you say? It was one of those, just kind of throwing it out there to see what he would say, and he said yes. And it was an amazing episode. I mean, Brian is just so warm and giving and caring, just the stories that he had from previous generations of Knoebels, and so I think that's one that, from a content standpoint, is amazing, right? But also the story that led up to it, to me, was also amazing.
That's fantastic. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, we had zero questions for Brian prepared for that. We're just off the cuff, and we just did it. I'll also say that this is a very difficult question to answer, because we've just had so many unbelievable, so many incredibly inspiring people to come on. When thinking about it, though, I think about when we interviewed John Wood from Sally, and we were talking about, I would say, kind of the business side of the dark ride, and he had explained something, and I followed up with how he answered the question with, that the families come, they ride it with their children, and then they're able to cherish that memories, and then as the children grow, that they're able to really embrace perhaps the ride that they had with maybe with their grandparents, and then I started to transition into the next question, and he jumped in. He said, he's like, can I add more to that? I was like, please, yeah, absolutely. And the response that he gave, I can't replicate it. You have to go back and you have to watch the interview.
Good tease.
But just the passion that he shared for what the impact of his attractions, and you could widen that out to really any attractions and everything that we're doing, is that's what we're doing, is we are helping to facilitate these memories with families, that the children grow up, and when people ask them, like, what's your favorite memory with your grandparent, like, it's us, it's our industry in many cases, and the experiences that they had, and it's just a kind of a mindset that it gets lost in the day-to-day minutia.
A lot of times it does.
And we have to remind ourselves of why we're doing that. A ride might break down, or we can't find this paperwork, or it's extremely hot out, or there's a storm coming in. So there's just all these things that just need to be done in the moment and in the heat of the operation. But we can't lose sight of what it is that we're doing to be able to create these experiences for people. And I know that we know it. It's not like it's lost on us entirely, but it sometimes just takes a back seat to this needs to be done right now, XYZ. And the way that he framed that, I thought was fantastic.
You mentioned that a lot of times we kind of lose focus just because of what we have to get done right now. And that's kind of the beauty of a podcast, that it's not appointment viewing. Yeah. You can dial in, you can upload, you can listen, whether you're in the car, you're in the kitchen, maybe you have a spare moment in the office, back at work. And that is what the podcast gives its listeners. Tell me, what has the podcast given you, Matt?
Wow. I think... I mean, as we talk about some of the people we've had on the podcast, certainly the strengthening of and deepening of the network, right? Because we have a real interesting pitch to someone. You know, if we're going to reach out to a CEO and say, can we have an hour of your time? It's not to pitch them something, you know, in terms of a product or a service. It's, we want to hear your story. We want to hear your take on your particular facility, your operation. And it's amazing how many people just say, yes, we'd love to do that, right? Not everybody has, sure. But quite a few have. And we've even been a little surprised, like, oh my gosh, we have this person on the podcast, you know? So that's been great. But I also think, you know, and maybe this is a little selfish, but, you know, I love this industry. I have such a passion for the attractions industry, and it has given me another way to give back in a way that I never would have thought of. I used to write a blog, you know, and now my sort of content marketing bandwidth goes to the podcast. But because we're involving so many different people, and because I get to do it with Josh, there's so many different perspectives that I get that I would never get when writing a blog. Right? Because now I'm hearing from Josh, now I'm hearing from all these leaders. And so that has really expanded my horizons when it comes to, again, what this industry is all about and what we're capable of.
Josh, how about you? How has the podcast affected you personally?
In addition to everything that Matt said, I feel like I'm continually gaining an advanced degree in the industry and in like all aspects of the industry, whether it's executive leadership or marketing or operations, just all the things that we cover in zoos. I feel like I know so much more about animal care and conservation and sustainability and things and diversity, equity, and inclusion that, you know, I ever would have. You know, I imagine that I would know this much about, and I know that I know it because I'm in every single episode, right? And I'm having the conversations and I'm talking, but I know that benefit extends to the audience as well. Yeah. That those people who reach out to me and they tell me that you know, I listen to this interview, or I try to listen as often as I can, or you know, I tune into this and I know that, you know, not only am I gaining this information, but it's available. It's there for the masses to be able to learn and really gain this inspiration and education that I just feel like I'm so much more in tune with the industry.
And speaking of being in tune, we're about 1/3 of the way through episode 300 of the Attraction Pros podcast. Thanks for joining us here at IAAPA headquarters in Orlando, Florida, as we celebrate with both Matt and Josh this milestone. Tell me, how has IAAPA helped your business?
Well, you allowed us to come in here and do our 300th episode.
You opened the door.
I did open the door for you. You did not break it.
Literally, you opened the door. I mean, my relationship with IAAPA goes back many, many years. As I've spoken at IAAPA, I've been part of an IAAPA, you know, the education committee, the HR committee. And for me, again, it goes back to network, right?
Sure.
Because there's so many people that you get to meet from a service capacity, right?
It's making those connections.
Yeah. And, you know, just like I talked about, the podcast gives me an opportunity to give back. Being involved with IAAPA also gives me an opportunity to give back. So, you know, everything that we do for IAAPA is volunteer, right? When you speak at the conference, when you are part of a committee, it's time that you get to engage your passion in a way that really helps other people. So that's just fulfilling right there. And so you take that, and then also you're getting to meet all these great people, and oh, by the way, it might help your business in some way. I mean, that's a trifecta.
Josh, how about you?
If I may quote myself.
Yes, why don't you? It's your show.
IAAPA Young
I'm just happy to be
Professionals
here.
acceptance speech. Any success that I've had in this industry and therefore in my career can have a direct link traced back to IAAPA.
Really?
And even when I think about my first introduction to IAAPA, my first expo, Matt was talking about how we met as show ambassadors. I remember all the ambassadors they gathered in a room and they brought in Alan Ramsey to speak to us, and he gave the most impressionable speech I think I've ever heard of. He taught us the value of network, and he expanded on that and talked about the importance of it and gave us these tips, these tricks, and it was his presentation was just full of just passion and enthusiasm, and I don't know, something just clicked right there, because starting that week I really saw the value of it and saw the importance of it, and then found the enjoyment of it and everything that Matt was talking about, of the people you get to see and get to meet, be able to introduce and connect with people, that it is playing the long game.
Yeah.
And in some ways it sometimes it does have short-term impacts as well, but
Sure.
it is all about planting seeds that are going to grow and blossom. Some might not be immediate, some might be, but many of them are going to blossom and mature over the course of your career. So the connections that you make, just know, hey, it might not make an impact today, but 10 years down the road, the fact that this person might be really really impactful. So I date it back to that first expo that I came to. Yeah.
It's your show. You saw the questions before we started. This one was not previewed. Tell me, here we go. Tell me, how does an IAAPA Expo as a young professional benefit you when you're an ambassador? We are 1 week away from, and we're recording this, 1 week away from IAAPA Expo Asia in Singapore. There will be about 24 ambassadors there. What does that experience do for a young person looking to get into the industry?
Sure. So despite the fact that it's been a few years, I think I can recall and give a pretty good answer to this. Matt and I were speaking with one of our interns a couple of months ago who said that his employer was going to cover his costs to go for IAAPA, and we had recommended to him that he apply to be an ambassador. He said, well, I might, but I know I'll be able to go anyway. And on the surface, it sounds like, okay, well, as long as you get to go, that's one thing. And we kind of uncovered throughout the conversation of apply anyway, and if you get it, do the ambassador. You can still represent your company in a way, but immerse yourself into everything the ambassador program has to offer.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. One of them, just flat out, is networking, and just the people that you will meet who are more senior in the industry, and you get to just weave your way into those conversations and be able to meet them. I would also say, if you're an ambassador, network with the other ambassadors. It's now been close to 16 years since I was a show ambassador, and a lot of us are still friends. We're industry colleagues. Some of them have been on the podcast, and being able to watch each other's careers grow. Yes, there's the career growth aspect of it, but then there's the byproduct of that, of being able to kind of say like, oh yeah, we did this together.
Yeah.
We had that week where we didn't sleep at all, and we didn't have any skin on our feet by the end of it, and like our toes were raw, right? So yeah, there's all those things, but then you come out of that and you just say like, this was one of the best and just most amazing weeks of my life, because of really kind of just hitting the accelerator on your career. And even the year that I was an ambassador, I was networking with another ambassador, and I knew that he was involved in a project that I wanted to be involved with, and he got me in touch with the one who was hiring for that position, and we took a walk on the show floor, and then and that was it. That was how I ended up at Hard Rock Park, because I realized I wanted that while I was an IAAPA ambassador. Networked with it was Doug Akers. He was the operations manager. He connected me with
another young professional of the year.
Another young professional of the year. Yeah.
Yes.
He connected me with John Riggleman, and we met during the trade show. And a couple weeks later, I was invited to go up to Myrtle Beach for my official interview. But it was almost like that interview was just a formality, because I basically solidified that during my time at the expo.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of the launching pad.
Yeah.
And how many others have phenomenal stories like that, whether they're ambassador, whether they're a professional, but this is where deals come together.
Yeah.
I had the good fortune to be in Abu Dhabi last week for the opening of SeaWorld Abu Dhabi on Yas Island. And they kind of pulled back the veil of secrecy and said that Moral and SeaWorld got together at IAAPA Expo and started to have this conversation of what would a park look like if we were to collaborate. And they have created one of the world's most imaginative immersive spaces. Yeah. What they have opened is absolutely just phenomenal. And it's something that you need to behold in person to really appreciate what is under this roof. And as soon as you get inside, you forget the roof is even there. But it's that glue, it's that connection that is made at an IAAPA Expo around the world, which leads to phenomenal careers, business opportunity, growth, revenue generation. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, you kind of pulled back the veil of secrecy when you said an intern who works on your show. We see you at the helm of this. But Matt, tell me a little bit about behind the scenes. There's no Keebler elves, but you do have interns who are up-and-coming leaders in the industry who assist you in the production of the program. Tell me about that.
So this came about actually through COVID. Josh and I were trying to figure out other ways besides the podcast to serve the industry and get people's stories out there. So we started a video series and quickly realized this is pretty labor intensive. Like to put all these videos together that people were sending us and that kind of thing.
Real quick, this was for suppliers, and we did this in
right.
response to some trade show being canceled.
Don't know what that was.
I don't like to say it was canceled. I just like to say maybe it was postponed for a bit.
So
out of an air of caution and safety.
An abundance of caution.
Right.
So we endeavored in this project, and we had been joking, even before that, like, we need some interns, right?
Yeah.
Because there's video editing, there's audio editing.
Absolutely.
There's everything that goes on with the podcast. There's the marketing of it, there's social media, the whole 9 yards. And so during this period, we thought, well, this is the time to do it because we have a lot of work that we need to do, but we also don't have anything to give them. Like, we don't offer college credit or anything. So we came up with money. This is still a passion project for us. So we came up with the mentorship internship program. So Josh and I, between us, have 300 years of experience in the industry. And as we've been talking about our network and contacts and network. And so we thought, if there are professionals out there, young professionals that could provide some services for us, we would absolutely open up our Rolodex, the old Rolodex, right? Offer any connections, offer any mentorship, and offer, kind of the reciprocal that way. And we have a number of people that have, raised their hand and said, yes, we want to help. So we have a young lady in the Philippines who does our video editing.
Wow.
We have the gentleman that he was talking about that, does a lot of our summaries, for each of podcast. We have a young lady out in California who does a lot of our correspondence with our guests, to say, hey, when can you do it? And she is amazing because she can coordinate our schedules and find a time that'll work for not only the two of us, but a very busy executive. So that has been wonderful to be able to have them perform these tasks, but also there have been some that have come and gone and have gone off to different careers and things like that. And they've asked us for recommendations. And this is, even though they're not getting paid, it's still real world experience, right?
Absolutely.
And there's a tangible output for that. So we feel like it's been, not only great for us to be able to get some help with that, but they're also in some ways better at things than us. Like the young lady that does our video editing, I can piece things together in iMovie, right? But she can put all kinds of graphics to it and the music and all these kind of things. And so we really feel like there's an elevated level of output, as we're incorporating their perspectives and their experience. But also, we just love when they say, I can't do this anymore because I've got a new job, right? And so that's kind of the point of it, and we're happy to see them spread their wings.
That's a lot of trust to be able to hand something as prominent as the Attraction Pros podcast off to somebody else who is still learning, who is still growing. Walk me through, as a professional, how do you either find trust or give that away? Because that's something that every manager within our industry at one time or another is going to face, whether they are a rides manager or a games manager of 50, 60, 100 people, or maybe it's an executive who has a team who's backing them up. Tell me, how do you establish, let's say, that trust?
Well, I think a lot of it stems from the expectations, right? So what is the expectation? Some of the people that have raised their hand and said they want to do this were previous listeners. So they know what our product level is, and they've been able to take that to the next level. So a lot of it is around expectations, and it's a lot of constant feedback. Like Josh is really, really good about looking over the summary that our intern writes and says, let's tweak this word here and there, right? So there's a lot of feedback that goes along with that before it actually goes out to the public.
Sure.
So I think those are the two big things, and Josh, certainly you can expand on that, but it's expectations and feedback.
Yeah, I don't have much to expand on, actually. I was thinking about that as you were asking, how do we give trust? I don't know, we just do it. We just say we trust you. We know that when they apply, I mean, we interviewed them. I put them on air quotes we had a conversation to understand sort of where they were at professionally. We know that sort of what they were aspiring from a career standpoint. So we knew that they were coming to the table with a baseline of skill sets of at least the professionalism and the intention that we were looking for. So that was probably maybe sorted out in the screening process. Yeah. And then from there, like Matt said, as far as really, really verifying and kind of just sort of, checking their work, offering feedback, and then being able to actually observe that, overall improvement and that, continuous growth, which is part of the mentorship side of it. Mm-hmm. And that I think is something that's important. And then to Matt's point too, as far as, some people have gone on and said, like, I can't be an intern anymore because I have another job. We said that from the start when we did interview them. We said, if something happens because this was in late 2020, so we had an abundant amount of people who wanted to be doing something.
Sure.
Right? They had nothing going on for them, and we said, as the industry continues to rebound, if you do get a job, if you get the job you want, whatever it is, and you don't have time for it, we celebrate that. We said we actually see that as a very good thing. We want that to happen, and then we will look at, maybe it's not the word intern, but as far as how does that evolve, because you're still part of it. You're not quitting because you're going on to another job. This is something that you can always be part of. So it's exciting. We've got some of our those who were previously active at the beginning who then moved on. We'll be seeing them at our meetup tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
After 299 shows, we have this conversation back here at IAAPA. What keeps a professional in the attractions industry up at night? Have you found a common thread of some challenge or something out there that everybody is either battling, mystified? Maybe it's an answer to a problem that they can gain through the podcast. Something that continuously bubbles up that you found an answer to.
It's interesting because I think that sort of ebbs and flows a little bit. Mm-hmm. When we were first coming out of the pandemic specifically, and everybody was talking about staffing, that was keeping everybody up at night.
Yes.
Right? There's other people that will say, their online reputation, is something that keeps them up at night. Or, just supporting their team is something that really is what drives them. But I think what the ultimate trend is, goes back to something you said earlier, which is it's all about people. Right? Yeah. So most of the time when Josh talks about that thread or the things that are, kind of bringing us all together, it is about people. Whether you're building a roller coaster or you're managing a zoo or, whatever you're doing, it does come down to people. So I think, if I were to go back to listen to all of those, it would probably be around something with their people, keeping them engaged, keeping them enthused, keeping the top talent.
Yeah.
Ultimately, in the long game, as Josh talks about, that's what is probably what's on the mind most of those top CEOs.
Some common thread, Josh, that you've heard along the way?
Well, I'll just expand on Matt's response, because I think I agree with that. It's completely about the people, because that is one of, if not the most dynamic aspects of the business. That every single day that you open, your people are determining what that day is going to look like. And that, by the way, includes guests as well. So one of the things that we've been talking about over the last year or so, and I believe we'll be presenting at IAAPA Expo this November, so a little plug for that, is about the intersection of the guest and employee experience and ways that you're able to manage the guest experience and the employee experience and the similarities between the two of them. So as far as, what keeps people up at night, like Matt said, it kind of ebbs and flows as far as like what the challenge of the day is, or the challenge of the week, I would say. And the solutions to that oftentimes come with the management of the people. Whether it is managing employees or whether it is managing the guest experience and looking at ways to really foster loyalty from your employees and foster loyalty from your guests.
We are more than a half hour through this special edition of the Attraction Pros podcast here at IAAPA headquarters in Orlando, Florida, episode number 300. And it's kind of neat that you're here. We mentioned the pandemic quite a bit. We did Fun World Live during the pandemic.
Yep.
It was our direct live to Facebook program where guests could ask questions. And you were the first guest on the show.
Yeah.
So now in a roundabout way, we've come full circle. You were the first guest on my show. I have the honor of interviewing you during show number 300. What advice would you have to, whether it's an attraction, whether it's a fellow leader in the industry, maybe it's a young professional, what advice do you have when it comes to starting your own podcast? Matt.
You're going to be terrible at it for a long time, so be ready for that. Yes.
Okay.
Well, and I would also say, don't look at this setup as what you should aspire to right off the bat. Josh and I started off with Skype, just over the phone.
Yeah.
And, we joke sometimes we can't go back and listen to some of those earlier episodes because the quality isn't that great. But I think what we have found to be the thing that drives us forward the most is our commitment to consistency. So we said in the very, very beginning, we said, we're going to put something out Tuesday morning every week. We just arbitrarily picked 9 a.m. Eastern time, Tuesday morning. That's something we could, commit to.
Sure.
Now, I will be transparent and say there's sometimes that on Monday night, we're going, what are we talking about tomorrow? We got to do something. But it was that commitment to being consistent that allowed us to get better, I think, at what we do. Sure. I think we're asking better questions. I think we try to make it fun, like conversational like this. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of feedback from guests that at first they say, I'm kind of nervous, but then at the end they say, that was kind of fun. So we try to keep it light. And I think we've gotten into a good rhythm that way, but it's taken 299 episodes to get there. So that goes back to my first point. Like, if you want to start a podcast, start a podcast. But know that you're not going to be great at it at first. But that's okay. Don't let that stop you, right? Be bad at it for a while. Just like starting anything, driving a car, right? You're going to be bad at driving a car when you first start, but keep going. Stay consistent and always keep trying to improve.
Josh, how about you?
Yeah. I was going to say just start it, right?
Yeah, just start it. Do it.
That's the hardest part, and the only hard part about it is in your mind, right? Someone 3.5 years ago told me he was thinking about starting a podcast, and we were talking about it, and I said, okay, like what it'll be about. And he mapped out the whole thing and the concept and everything, and then 3 months ago we were chatting, and he's like, so I really think I'm going to start that podcast. And it's like, no, all you have to do is start it. Like the barriers to entry of starting a podcast don't exist. You can do it. Like Matt said, you don't have to do this setup. Grab your phone and record a voice note, and then we use Podbean as our server. Mm-hmm. It connects us to all the podcast platforms. And then, during COVID is when we switched from Skype audio to Zoom. So now we have a YouTube channel, from there. So continue to seek feedback from yourself, I would say, and from those around you, and be able to say, okay, how can I continue to make this a little bit better? So as we, after we kicked it off, I think the first few guests we had, I don't think we planned any questions for them. I think if you go back and you listen to them, it could be, hey, Scott, tell us all about yourself, about IAAPA, about your career history, and where you see the industry going in the future, right? If I asked you that, you'd be like, whoa. And then
That's a loaded question.
You would talk for probably 11 minutes straight, and then I'd be like, I don't have any. Okay, that was it. Like, I have no follow-up questions, right? So then being able to kind of know your own flow, and then Matt and I, we have found our groove. If you listen to those early episodes, there's some time like with some dead air. There's some times of like Matt and I talking over each other. I think doing it on video solved a lot of that, and then like kind of understanding like, okay, what is our like natural dynamic? And our guests have complimented that on. They're like, hey, you guys do a really good job of sort of working together to create the podcast, and that came about organically. I don't think we sat down, we had any meetings of just like, okay, we need to do this better. I think we just sort of naturally felt it out as far as where it could continue to improve. And there's still a lot more to go. And that's, what's exciting just about it being 300 is like, okay, what do the next 300 look like? They're going to be even better than the last 300. So focus on continuous improvement, but don't be too hard on yourself. Because like Matt said, not only at the beginning is it going to suck, at the beginning, your audience is the smallest.
Sure.
So no one cares.
That's the best time to be bad at something.
Exactly.
When no one's listening.
And then as you get better at it, that's also as your audience grows as well.
Do you keep data on the size of your audience? How many people are listening?
So I wish the stats were better.
Yeah.
No, I mean like the stats that we
You're
could
among
get are
friends.
actually better. Yeah. So we're
Your
able to
parents
see.
listen,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Your wife
Exactly.
listens.
Exactly. Yeah, no, my wife doesn't listen.
She doesn't listen. No?
I think I've had her listen to a couple episodes actually, so she could hear me in the background. Right? We live in a small condo, so but we're able to see how many downloads we get per day and how many we get per episode. But what we cannot see is how many. It is like the breakdown of like if I were to look at yesterday's, like how did that break down across episodes? So I do wish the stats that we got were a little bit more robust, but we're able to see that. And then on YouTube, we're able to see overall downloads. But to your point, I'll give a quick plug here that May 2023 was our most downloaded month since we started.
So you're growing. It continues to grow.
Yeah, and it ebbs and flows. It happened as well in February, and then it dipped down just ever so slightly in March and April, and then just shot up in May of 2023.
Congratulations.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. We have about 5 minutes left, believe it or not. I'm trying to keep this train on the tracks, 45 minutes. Are you ready for some quick questions?
Absolutely.
All right, Matt, we're going to start with you. What's your favorite kind of attraction?
Oh my gosh. This is the speed round?
This is the speed round. Favorite attraction. Favorite kind of attraction.
Do you mean like amusement park,
Zoo,
like
aquarium, water park, theme park,
I'm
FEC.
going to say old traditional amusement parks. Give
us an example.
Something like a Canopy Lake Park, an old trolley park. Still has some fixtures from the 50s and 60s that you can see. Just very traditional. Not a lot of big thrills, although I love roller coasters and big fast ones.
Yeah.
But there's just something magical about walking through a facility like that.
Josh, how about you? Favorite kind of attraction?
I will go with theme park that blends storytelling with thrill rides.
Very well said.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite kind of ride, Josh?
Kind of ride?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say an Intamin Giga Coaster.
Wow. All right. Very
I can
nice.
be more specific if you want.
Do you have a favorite?
I do.
Who would that be?
That would be Millennium Force, the #1 steel coaster on the planet.
Look at that. You're not biased by any means.
Not at all. Yeah.
All right. It has a beautiful view, I'll tell you that.
It does.
And it packs a great ride.
Yeah.
Matt, how about you?
I will also say
Favorite kind of ride?
A favorite type of ride is a roller coaster. Although Josh and I do go back and forth about this because I believe that Fury 325 at Carowinds is in my opinion, the #1 steel coaster on the planet.
A strong B&M.
I just love the speed, the power, the airtime. It's so re-rideable. That's what I love about it as well.
It's amazing. All right. Favorite kind of food and beverage item? F&B. Matt.
The funnel
what do you
cake.
crave?
The funnel cake. Absolutely. If I'm going to a park, and a lot of very traditional parks have them, which is wonderful, that's my go-to. Have to have one.
Josh, how about you?
Cheese on a stick.
Cheese on a stick. Both of those are fantastic. Amazing. And Cedar Point at the Boardwalk has just introduced funnel cake dipped shrimp.
I'm in.
And it was phenomenal, let me tell you. The new
What does that mean?
funnel cake dipped shrimp. They are shrimp that are deep fried in funnel cake batter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's now at the new Grand Pavilion, and it's the food is great, the view is fantastic. It is definitely something to check out.
That is very unique.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
And cheese on a stick at CPO as well. It can't be beat. What's your favorite time of year at the park?
Mine would be spring, because that's when, especially if you think about a traditional seasonal park, that's when everything is blooming and we're getting ready to open and we're putting out the cans and the benches, and it's all leading up to that one moment when you open the gate and let people in for the very first time. That was always my favorite time at the park.
I'm going to go with Halloween.
Halloween.
And probably particularly at a seasonal park. If it's fall, it's a little cool out. If I can walk around with leaves all over the ground with like a sweatshirt and a cup of coffee, like it's just so different from the like July 4th, which is just as like exciting, but in a very different way.
I got you.
Yeah.
What is your dream job in the industry?
I think I have it.
Do you?
Yes.
You say that.
I do.
That's fantastic.
Yes,
That's awesome.
Yes. And 30 years in the making.
Sure.
But
you've worked for this.
The fact that I get to work with so many different types of facilities, like Josh was talking about, even on the podcast, we learn about zoos and aquariums, and those are a big part of my client base. It's just amazing to get to work with that many passionate people in that many different disciplines within the industry.
Josh, how about you?
That was a nice answer.
That was a nice answer. What is your dream job in the industry?
I think it'll come as no surprise to you that I want to be on a boat telling very corny jokes.
Where could you do that?
I don't know.
So some type of boat ride where you can drive and tell jokes.
Yes.
Well, you would do it very, very well. Real quick, Matt, biggest mentor.
Biggest mentor I would have to say is Dave Vosepka. When I was at Valley Fair, he's still with Cedar Fair. He was just great at distilling things down to something that was very understandable, and when we would get hot-headed about things, very good about calming us down and getting us to see the bigger picture.
Biggest mentor, Josh.
Matt Heller.
No,
not to get like sentimental,
really,
but the amount that I feel that I have learned from you, even just for the last 6 years, but even like way prior to that, I saw you as a mentor just sort of through my career, kind of as I moved sort of from park to park, and I felt like I was always able to bounce ideas off of you and get guidance. And then definitely, I feel like the amount that I've learned about leadership has absolutely accelerated over the last 300 weeks.
Wow, thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah, look at that. I just got goosebumps. I really did. That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a television reporter, you only had 90 seconds, a minute and a half to tell a story. I always went over, and I apologize, but we have gone over.
That's okay.
45 minutes here. I have taken some great notes. When we sit around and put together, here's my shameless plug. When we put together Fun World magazine, we're always looking for insight, and you have put together some great insight today. So thank you very much. Thank you for your trust in me and trusting me with the honor of being part of your 300th episode. Congratulations. And so with that, the last word is yours. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, Matt, I think there's only one thing left to say here.
And that is...
We are all Attraction Pros!
Thanks for listening to the Attraction Pros Podcast.
Make sure to subscribe so you can tune in when new episodes release, and even better, please leave us a review on iTunes.
For more information, visit AttractionPros.com.